Yeah, these are the weird little moves that you probably don't think to do, but they will rebuild every one of your angry joints and unlock superhuman strength and skill. And I know because I've done this for thousands of strength ninjas at Pacific Rim Athletics, and these are called scaffold moves. Now, you might be in one of two different positions. First, you might be not in the shape that you want to be in, dealing with pain, trying to rebuild your body, or you might already be training and wanting to level up. Either way, these scaffold moves will help you. Now, this first one comes from my background of training, and it actually involved when I was dealing with a lot of back pain. Now, that's all history, but these moves help to solve it. Plus, like I said, it unlocks much higher level strength and skill. And so what we're doing here is just sitting flat down on the ground, hands at our sides, and then holding our legs up off of the ground. Now, that used to trigger a lot of pain in the lower back. The reason why a lot of people deal with lower back pain is because of a couple of different things. Tight hamstrings are one of them. And so one of the scaffold moves are moves that help you get to the higher level strength and skill so that you actually have a buffer for all of life, really, and all of the moves and all of the activities that you want to do, plus all of the athleticism. And so the higher you can get your athleticism to, then the more resilience you'll have for everything else in life. And so that was a goal for me, to be able to hold that V stand without any back pain. Again, reason why is because of tight hamstrings that it was triggering pain. And then if you're already training and you're not able to hold that position, it's more than likely due to either a weak core, which is also going to trigger back pain, or you've got tight hamstrings as well. And so one of the scaffold moves that we'll do to get to that position is this. This is a static hold, and we're just lifting the hips up off of the ground, okay? The legs are straight, and we're using what's called core compression strength to lift the hips up into that position. Now, again, you might already be feeling that in your hamstrings. So we're gonna deal with that with more of these scaffold moves. So whenever you're in this position, ideally, we do wanna have the face all the way down on the legs, okay? We wanna be able to fold in half like that using our strength. So that's one that you'll be able to try and see. Where do you feel it? Do your legs cramp up? Are you able to pull yourself down without the legs bending? Okay, so once again, folding yourself in half, using the core to pull down. So instead of a sit up, it's a pull down, okay? Now, one major problem that people have with their training is oftentimes you're fighting against yourself. Let me back up even further. My whole emphasis is body weight strength and skill. It's mastering your body first. That's why I call it total body mastery, and that's the whole thesis of Powerbatics and why we train this way. So you're trying to build total body mastery, you're trying to get fit, you're trying to accomplish goals, but you're fighting against yourself, quite literally, because of the fact that your hamstrings, in this particular case, are so tight, okay? So another scaffold move that we're gonna do to get to that V stand is gonna be the hanging hamstring stretch. Literally just rolling your chin down, reaching all the way down. You wanna be able to put your hands on the ground. Whenever I coach, I always say, chin on your shin, nose on your toes. And that's trying to help you elongate your spine to get down to that position. So we can go rolling the chin down, rolling the back down, letting everything go into the hamstrings. And the reason why I call these scaffold moves is that you're gonna be using them to build your way up to what are called pinnacle moves in our training. So the V stand would be like a pinnacle move. Even beyond that would be the V stand press up to a handstand. And so we're using these scaffold moves to kind of build that framework to get up to that position. But they will be unique to different situations because you don't really ever build scaffolding in exactly the same way. You've got different goals, and then you have different weaknesses and different strengths within that system that's going to require a different type of scaffolding, thus different scaffold moves for what we're talking about here. And so somebody that is super flexible, and we'll talk about that in a second, maybe they're able to, they're able to not only put their hands on the ground, but they can put their forearms on the ground. And there are many people that can do that. And that's going to require a different set of scaffold moves. You understand what I mean? So we've got two so far. So the first one, so our pinnacle move, boom. Then our first scaffold move, static hold. And then to start unlocking the hamstrings, we might use this hamstring stretch, just hanging. Okay, just another static position. And you guys know from the other videos on the channel that I'm a fan of static training because I think that builds a very robust foundation for everything else that you want to do. And there's a huge factor in terms of your mind and being able to hold through those grueling times. Okay, the second move is sort of in the same family, kind of in the same theme of what we're doing here, but we're gonna do this in a straddled position. So this is called a stalder position. And the same thing with that is that we can also press that up all the way to a handstand. So stalder press handstand will be considered another pinnacle move. Now the scaffolding to get up to that situation, to get up to that level of strength, again, which provides the robust foundation and buffer for the rest of life, for all of the other activities that you want to do. Again, these are not just tricks or, sideshow spectacles. This is about building your body to have total body mastery that is resilient for everything else. And so in this stalder stand situation, or this stalder stand pinnacle move, there might be a few things that are holding you back, okay? So we're looking at those two categories. Maybe you're trying to rebuild your body, or maybe you're trying to get to the next level. And so here's the first one that I usually tell people to do. And this is not a static move. This is something different. I talked about this method in other videos that you can go check out, but this is called the pulse method. And so hands are flat on the ground, and then we're lifting the legs up in a straddle, and then we're going up and down quick, not slamming the feet on the ground or anything like that. So it's almost a combination of reps with the static hold. We combine them together so that they're quick movements, and they're helping to just train those positions and building out a little bit more movement and range of motion and all of those fun things. Now, what if you can do that, okay? And you're sitting here like this, and then you're like, I can't lift up off the ground. Like, that's really tough. So there's gonna be two different things that we can talk about there. And again, as I mentioned in the V stand, some of those scaffold moves, they may apply to you, they may not. If you have, again, if you have a lot of flexibility, then you're gonna need to work on your strength, because over flexibility, over mobility, without your body's ability to handle forces is really just vanity. And it's gonna break down whenever you come into any sort of athletic movement that requires any sort of speed. And you don't want to be in that kind of situation. And really, like, who wants to live just, down here at this lowest form of human existence where you're just scared about doing anything? You want to have a body that can function and be powerful and have good athletic movement. That's not just an extra or a side item or a dessert in this life. It's something that we should all have. Okay, so scaffold moves from the stalder position. There was the pulse in the seating stalder. And then the next one is this one will apply to those folks that have over flexibility. And if you're able to sit down on the ground and start holding your legs up off of the ground, this will apply to you as well. So this is going back to our foundation of the horse stance, which I talk about in other videos. But coming down low, putting the hands back behind. And then for a lot of people, this right here might be a stretch. This might be really difficult. The first goal is just getting the feet flat down on the ground and the palms down, okay? So again, a different scaffolding for you if you're in that situation, a completely different train of or approach to your training than somebody else that, let's say that they can whoop their way down here and maybe you can get into this position, no problem. Now you're gonna have to start executing some more strength and using your core and your legs to start flexing and making everything straight lines. A person might get into if they're very flexible, they might even be able to bend their elbows and sit on it like this and then have their leg out. And that'll take away from the strength training. And so we want to get in there and we want to lock everything out and straighten everything out. And so we're using the horse stance and then scaffolding our way up to the stalder stand. And again, it's going to be unique to different situations wherever you're at. All right, the third move is going to be in this same theme. And all of these moves that I'm taking from today are from the handstand element of Powerbatics. And we'll talk about 3 of these major positions. So first we've done the V stand, second the stalder, and then the third one of 6 for the handstand element is just going to be a regular handstand. Why a handstand? Oh my goodness, we could talk about this for hours, and I'm sure that we could even make a 60-hour course just on handstand training. It is foundational for a lot of other sports. I often talk about competitive weightlifters, Olympic weightlifters that compete at those levels, and they started off with bodyweight strength as their foundation, including a handstand, and even arching handstands, hollow backs. Wrestlers, super acrobatic in terms of their training. Wrestling is essentially acrobatics, but with 2 people in an unpredictable setting. And so you oftentimes see wrestlers doing tumbling training, like full power tumbling, handstands and everything else. So this is foundational to really all of human movement. And it's a good base for, number 1, shoulder mobility, number 2, pushing strength. And so I think that your pushing strength should start with building a handstand. And so oftentimes people will start with their hands up and they'll kick into it really dramatically, and their legs will be flailing all over the place, or they'll fall down. Maybe you're scared of falling down or going down head first or anything like that. We want to avoid all of those situations and scenarios because they're all completely unnecessary. And again, we just want to use those scaffolding moves that'll be unique to different situations. And so let's talk about the first one of getting into that. I've talked about the frog stand and a lot of other videos, so we're not going to take that route today. We're going to talk about something different. So we're going to talk about the lunge. The lunge, arms overhead, and then going up into a handstand. Whenever we drive that back leg up, it teeter-totters us over to a handstand, okay? But we don't want to do that. We actually want to start even easier than that. And this is something that probably 80-90% of people can do right off of the bat, is just putting your hands down on the ground and then straightening out that leg that's on the floor. And what you'll notice is it's probably going to lift this back leg up. When we do that, we want to continue raising that leg up as high as we can and holding, again, static holds. Now this is called a needle kick, especially if we start here with the arms up and then we kick into it. That's going to force more hamstring flexibility. It's going to force coordination because you have to treat your whole body as a unit. The leg has to go up, which brings the hands down, not vice versa where we're leaning down and then kicking like this, okay? We want to kick everything in and touch the hands as the foot goes up. So that's one. That's on kind of the dynamic side, a little bit of movement, a little bit of action in there. But if we take a step back and we go back to where the hands are on the ground, this leg is straight, this leg is up here, we can now start to use the fingers to grip the ground and come up to where you can see the whites in your toes and the whites in your fingers, and that shows you that all the pressure is going forward. And then what we want to do, and this is an awesome drill that I think many people are overlooking. I was working with one of our students online, Jason, and it was a really good training session, and it started to unlock a lot more potential for his training just by doing this, and we got into much better handstand shapes from that. But we're here like this, and we're leaning forward, and then we're using this leg to pull ourselves up off of the ground. This foot stays really close to the ground though, if you notice. And we'll talk about why this is so important in just a second. But we're pulling, and that foot stays super close to the ground. And then we can start doing your traditional reps. So we've talked about static holds, we've talked about pulse, we talked about reps now. And this one is where you can do like your traditional 5 sets of 10 on both sides. And think about this. This is the importance that I alluded to a moment ago. When you are doing a move like this, whether it's the V-stand, the Stalder, or this handstand, and we're going and doing reps like this, every single time you do that, it is the equivalent of holding the total amount of your body weight overhead. I guess minus a little bit because your arms wouldn't be included necessarily, but we're kicking up, and it might be low at first. Then those reps, they might be a little bit more confident, and you're staying in that split position. So it's training flexibility, mobility, and strength simultaneously. And then you might accidentally just stay up there in a handstand, and then bringing the feet together and balancing. Well, that's a different level altogether, and we'll say that for a different time. But at minimum, if you start combining this, just look at this. These 3 simple moves, these 3 weird little moves that contain these even weirder little scaffold moves, starts to build your body completely new and takes care of joints that you hadn't been training. It starts to unlock the superhuman strength and skill. And by superhuman, I simply mean just sort of that top 5, top 1%, and the ability for your body to move with adaptability and power. That's what I really mean by that. And so think about that. We've gone over the V-stand, the Stalder, and the handstand. Those are 3 of 6 moves in the handstand element of Powerbatics. We've talked about several scaffolding moves that help you to get to those different positions. And even between each other, there are also going to be scaffolding moves for each other. Okay, so for example, if you can hold yourself in a V stand and you build not only the flexibility but the strength of your core and your triceps to hold up, then that will also be a scaffolding move for holding yourself in the Stalder. That will be a scaffolding move for working on your handstand. And all of these moves come together to rebuild all of those angry joints and to unlock superhuman strength and skill.